Hey, it's time for Deploy on Friday, the super not serious show featuring the news and tech trends of the week. 4.9 out of 5 web devs polled agreed they know nothing about the show and wish that we would stop bothering them with pointless surveys. Joining me from the sunny confines of his suburban office in Melbourne, it's Mr. Jim Pelletier. How are you, sir? How are you this fine Friday?
Well, actually, I'm great. I'm great. I am dealing with a lot. I've had my media server and my personal laptop all blow up on me in the last 2 days.
Oh
So there's
no.
a lot of yeah. So there's a
Is
lot
that
of
a Windows Home server that you have, or is that something else?
it's a Raspberry Pi with Plex and all sorts of stuff on it. So yeah, that's that one's a little trickier. That's a bit more surgical. I'm in there trying to async to new devices and that kind of stuff, asking all my content to new drives. And then my personal MacBook blew up.
Oh
So I ended
wow.
up,
Okay.
yeah, I ended up going. Do you remember the time capsules?
Yeah, I
Mac
got one.
time capsules.
Yeah, I
Yeah, it
got
turns
one.
out you can't buy them anymore. They don't sell them. I walked into an Apple store and asked the guy for them, and this sort of younger genius was looking at me like I was crazy. And then thankfully one of the older guys heard me. He's like, "Yeah, you got to find them on eBay now." So picked one up on eBay, and here we go.
What are you doing buying hardware? This is the age of the cloud. Come on, get with the times.
Well, I don't think I can back up the whole terabyte hard drive to the cloud or want to or
Challenge accepted. Watch me. Yep. I just look at like your move, Dropbox. Come on, that's
yeah,
my
yeah,
attitude.
yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Well, let's get into the news of the week. We've got a lot of stuff to share. So this was a podcast that, well, this has been done by Jeffrey Palermo for quite a long time. He's up to episode 231. And in this episode, this is the Azure DevOps podcast. He interviewed our SVP of product, Colin Bowern. So he's talking to him about, how he joined Octopus and how you build out features, etc. It's a great little conversation there if you're at all interested in finding out how the sort of sausage is made, so to speak. Colin, of course, is leading the charge there for product and is the person to basically steer the ship of the future direction of the company. So relative to product. So yeah, it's a great little podcast that Jeffrey's got. I listen to it from time to time amongst many other podcasts that I have to put on my list, but definitely worth checking out there. Uh, this was a great blog post. This was actually, caught a lot of attention of folks. Lead times. So we've got lead time, we've got cycle time, we've got a whole bunch of other times. Um, and this was an article written by a fellow colleague of ours, Steve Fenton, who basically talked about, why is there so many definitions for this? What is it that is important when building software? Is it the fact that you've got the issue in place, or is it the time to deployment, or is it from the you know what sort of lead time do you care about? That's and there's a lot of different ways in which this is defined. So Steve's article on our blog is fantastic and basically lays out the case that we've got a lot of different times to measure. And that they are certainly things that you want to measure, but also you got to be careful about how you measure and what's important, and think about the customer experience first, etc. So there's a lot of different ways to measure this stuff, and I think Steve basically just made me think like it's more confusing than ever before. So, do you guys deal with this on the engineering side at all?
We do. I mean, when we're thinking in the engineering terms, we're usually, I'm not sure which definition this is going to be, but we're talking about, I don't know, either time from completing the change to time to it's in a customer's hands, or maybe if we're being a bit more holistic, the time we're sure we want to do some work to the time it's in the customer's hands.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
So you would fall under more the lean software development strategy.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, I really love the ones that go further back from sort of much more dealing with inception, but
Yeah. So you're
yeah,
you're dealing with more the classic sort of measurement espoused
yeah,
by Toyota back in the day with the lean movement.
they're the
So
ones I
this is
enjoy more.
basically I've put my money down and now I've set up my order and now I have the car. So
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
mhm. And then we have internal cycle times, which of course are a little bit of a different animal. This is basically how we track the internal ideation, if you will, of features. And But it's a good thing to consider, because obviously this is, how you track your team's velocity in some sense, and having a consistent definition of these things is going to be important. Moving right along, we've got a couple of videos that I've recorded. I recorded this one with Damian Brady of GitHub. He talked to us about basically all the great things that are happening over at the GitHub side of the world. And we talked about a whole range of different topics, so you can get a sense of everything that was covered there. So everything from Copilot to the CLI to GitHub Actions and everything else in between. So that was a fun little interview I did with him. And then I did another interview with Thomas Lee. Thomas is been heavily involved in the PowerShell space, and we talked about everything relating to PowerShell 7 and everything that's there. So if you want to check out those, you can go ahead and do so. Those are available up on our channel. Moving right along, this is something that I didn't know if a lot of people knew about, but there's a little product called Backstage. Have you heard of this? This is from the folks over at Spotify.
Is this the one about media stuff? No.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
well, it's got a little bit of aspect of it. So basically, Spotify created this way back when called Backstage, and they made this available to the CNCF. And what it is it allows you to basically consolidate all the resources you have associated with your microservices, your APIs, etc., under one banner, a single pane of glass, and basically giving you a developer portal. And so if you've got these things kind of all over the place, this gives you sort of, as I said, a single pane of glass for managing all this. One aspect of this that they have is CI/CD, and this was a plugin that was written by a member of the community. So they added a plugin for Backstage that surfaces out the deployments in a space for Octopus Deploy. And so you can see there's a little bit of work that's been done there, and but I just thought this was cool. Like, someone in the community just decided, hey, I want to build this into Backstage, and away you go. So that's great to see.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So let's move on to the general news and tech trends and what's happening elsewhere, so to speak. So JetBrains has posted just an absolute boatload of EAPs, rather. So they have a whole list of products that folks are familiar with, of course, like their developer tools and their developer servers, etc. Anything and everything around any technology or language that you want to target. So they've got, IDs like Golang, they've got React, they've got Rider and ReSharper, et cetera, et cetera. So they've got just a whole boatload of different tools. And if you're at all interested, you can check out their blog and get a sense of what's happening there. So Jim, you're a Rider fan, and
I am.
So if you wanted to check out what's happening there, you can take a look at their series of blog posts. They've got a ton there, and then they've added. I'm assuming you're using a little bit of ReSharper, but if we take a look at what's available in 2023.1 EAP 5, we've got schema comparisons, visualizers for debuggers. That's also something that you can do in VS, of course. Blueprint error parsing, I have no idea what that is, but schema comparisons, if you're working with databases, that's always a good thing. Visualizers for debuggers, which is always great. You can be able to hover over items in a debug session and drill into the contents, which is always good. Code cleanup, refactoring. I'm not assuming you're going to do any game development at all.
Not anytime real soon. Not anytime real soon. But yeah. I'm just hoping live share is the next one on the list.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, if you're at all interested, you could go check out those blog posts. So dare to dream, I guess. But yeah. So I'm really impressed with the velocity of folks like JetBrains. They do a really good job of kind of keeping those updates going, and I've always been a fan of their velocity, and it's great to see.
And the fact they have that such a easy to participate in early access programs, fantastic.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So you can sign up for pretty much anything, and they're you're on the list, and here you go, and here's the latest bits, and it's great. Moving right along, Grafana is, I like Grafana a little bit. We've actually got a data source. Octopus Deploy has a data source for Grafana. It's kind of like, use at your own discretion type support. But Grafana is a tool that allows you to visualize telemetry that comes in a variety of ways. It allows you to basically have a way of visualizing, typically in the case of observability and monitoring. And it's a great little tool, and used quite heavily. This caught my attention. Obviously, I'm a fan of good docs, and so they went through the process of updating their own docs. And If you are at all using Grafana, and you're curious to know, how to use it and what APIs are available, they've just redone their entire docs. So it's great to see that people are definitely putting the craftsmanship on this sort of thing. We try our best, obviously, to make sure that docs are are as good as they can be. We are radically improving our docs with a whole bunch of different features. We're looking at a bunch of technologies that we can use to help with that as well. Our docs are based in Markdown, and we are constantly iterating on them as well. So it's not an easy thing to do, but it's something that we are definitely committed to doing. So always good to see there. So moving right along, Go. I put out the Go team put out this blog post. This is around comparable types. This is about putting constraints on a variety of types available in the Go language. And before Go 120, which was just recently shipped, this was something that there were some edge cases here that would get by the compiler as around using the comparable constraint. And so this is an article that talks about utilizing generics and making sure that the comparable constraints are applied correctly. Yeah, definitely something that is a good thing going forward in the language, which is great. Now I know you're really excited about this one, Jim. .NET 8, right? I mean, .NET 8. Isn't it every multiple of 3 is when you should upgrade, right? Like that's when Microsoft gets it right.
I'm waiting for this. I literally am waiting for this one with bated breath. There's a big performance improvement for debugging on Macs coming, I hope, in this.
All right.
Yeah.
Which one? What do you like here?
I'm not sure. I haven't actually looked if it's in there yet, but it would be it would be a bug, basically.
Oh, okay.
It would be a bug written in there somewhere. There is.
Right.
I'm currently running a recompiled version of .NET on my machine so that I can debug with any kind of real performance. It's an M1 issue.
Oh, okay.
Mac M1 issue. Yeah.
All right. I was told by a colleague of mine that they were looking forward to the Frozen collection. So there's a series of new types in the BCL, namely system.collections.frozen, this namespace. And there's 2 types in here, the Frozen Dictionary and the Frozen Set collections. And this person I was talking to was saying that they were very keen on utilizing these to have these sort of immutable data structures that they can use and have them super fast. And yeah.
And they can be frozen and unfrozen, I assume, as opposed to just being the read-only ones that we have.
I'm not sure if they can be unfrozen. I think that I don't know. I'd have to read more about this. This is, it's like telephone. I'm basically telling you what someone else told me.
Yeah.
So I haven't had a chance to grok this entire doc. This did come out recently. So, but definitely worth catching up on. And of course, with .NET 8, the preview 1 bits of .NET 8 comes also all the releases associated with the various subsystems of .NET, including ASP.NET, Entity Framework, Machine Learning, MAUI, which is for mobile device UIs, NuGet, Roslyn, the runtime compiler-related technology, the BCLs, WinForms. Yes, you heard me. Your ears are working correctly. WinForms. So, so lots of great stuff going on there, and definitely worth checking out. And sort of related to this, of course, is a new release of Visual Studio 2022, the 17.5 release. This is a new version of the VS proper VS, not VS Code, but VS, and lots of stuff in the list there. I was going through this list earlier, and the one that obviously a lot of people are going to care about are faster .NET build times. So build times are a little bit improved, which is great to see. Improved experience when working with Razor and generally when C#. I'm assuming, given the fact that you're a rider fan, you're not going to convert with this new release.
No, I won't. I won't be switching my laptop out for a Windows one just to get this. Although those build times looked very impressive.
Yeah, I'd be curious to a little bit know. I haven't actually had a chance to drill into this article either. I just caught it, but I would be curious to know kind of what they did to make this a little bit better. So
hopefully those improvements might come to the CLI as well.
Yeah, 100%. So the other one that they do, of course, is built-in text visualizers. It's kind of ironic that JetBrains also talks about this in the latest EAP of Rider. You can see here, this is a kind of a video showing visualization of in a debug context. So if you hover over a particular type, you can go and take a look and drill down into it. So they've got various ways in which to do that. So that's great to see. So definitely something worth checking out as well. In addition to .NET 8, taking a look at what's available there. I haven't actually looked at all of this, but yeah, looks great to see. So awesome. VS 2022 17.5. There you go. Speaking of VS, obviously, this is a preview that I'm assuming that. Do you use a Git client on its own, or are you kind of like integrated? You like the integrated
I
story?
command line. I use command line.
Okay. Oh, you use Git
Yeah,
on the
pretty
command
much.
line?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
hardcore.
yeah.
So do you like cherry pick and do all those things through like Git
uh,
proper, like not?
yeah, I do if I have to, but I rarely need to do that. I mean, I've got these days. I
Yeah, yeah.
mainly just got aliases set up to just add
Okay.
everything, commit everything, and then publish everything or push everything.
Right, right.
So yeah,
I
yeah,
was gonna
yeah,
say that's pretty hardcore. Like I use Git Kraken, so I like the
yeah, yeah,
integration there. I have
yep,
had to resort to the command line once or twice, and before that
yeah,
I've used obviously the GitHub UI client, etc. There's also the
mm,
GitHub CLI.
yep,
But what this is basically an ability to now pull or reference GitHub issues and pull requests directly in VS. So the idea here is that now you can actually view and reference items in sort of the tree view, or rather the well for Git changes that are highlighted there. So you
yeah.
can
That's
see we've
handy.
got 100%. So
Yeah, I
nice
mean
here, like when
that's something I go to GitHub for. Like if I want to,
yeah,
I
yeah,
can
I'm
get
with
the
you.
information on what PR it was from, maybe, or if I
Yeah.
have to go backwards. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So like this has always been the experience I've loved within the web portal experience
mm,
of GitHub. That as soon as you start typing, things kind of just magically appear. And so the fact that they've got this now in something like VS is awesome. So you get access to issues. You can turn these on and off, obviously, through various settings, and then other things as well as far as GitHub integration is concerned. So definitely worth checking out there. Now, again, I'll try and convince you that this is probably worth your time investigating, but I am a VS Code fan. I hate to admit, I'm not hate to admit it. I will proudly admit the fact that I use VS Code. It is my default text editor of choice, and I like it a lot. And so, this is the latest version of VS Code. This is the January 2023 update, version 1.75. Lots of things here. Some additional features around profiles. So this is something that I think I heard was coming, but the idea is that you can now sign in with a profile and then set various settings. I know VS and Rider fans have had things like this for a while, but obviously making this available in VS Code is great. So basically, you can take all your code snippets and your tasks and all that sort of stuff with you along for the ride, which is great. Other features obviously include things like better search integration, signing of extensions from the Visual Studio Marketplace, new Git command integration. Jupyter Notebooks has always been a thing in VS Code, so better integration there. Of course, AI tools as well. So that's talking more about Copilot. So lots of stuff there, and definitely worth checking out on the VS Code side of things. So
yeah. It's
what's
great.
stopping you from using VS Code, Jim? Come on.
Well, yeah, I was just about to clarify. VS Code's my preferred editor,
Oh, okay.
100%.
Sorry.
But it doesn't deal well with large C# solutions. So if you have a solution of a certain size and you're trying to navigate by types and build, that language server doesn't quite seem to really cut it at some point.
Okay.
Mind you, I'm having trouble with Writer at the moment with that same thing. So maybe it's time to give it a go. The only
Yeah.
other thing that really tends to stop me, I think, is I don't think the refactorings are smart. So,
Oh,
um,
right.
so if you're working with a large C# solution, the kind of refactorings that ReSharper offers and Riga offers through Rider, obviously as well,
Mm,
um, are pretty much required to refactor a large code base, and they're not really. Some of the more powerful ones aren't there in Visual Studio Code. And then test management. So running different suites of tests, grouping tests, all that kind of stuff
mm,
doesn't really seem to be where I need it to be when it's a large suite of tests of varying size, complexity, and quality.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's a fair summary of some of
yeah.
those things for sure.
But if
So,
I can, if I can use it for a small solution, if I
yep,
can use it for a solution that I'm writing from scratch, I will. Because you can also write code in a way that's probably better and more suited for VS Code, and make your life a lot easier in a whole lot of ways.
gotcha. Yeah, that's a good insight there. This one actually popped up on my radar earlier today. This is a beginner's guide to learning how to code with GitHub Codespaces. So let's assume, Rider isn't cutting it for you. Let's say my name's Jim. I've been using Rider for a bit or VS. I'm getting frustrated, and even VS Code to me is feeling like a little clunky. And I want something that's like I've got a new Chromebook, maybe. Maybe I would just want to have that browser experience, and have the environments auto provision for me. This is maybe a solution you could use. Code Spaces is obviously a thing. The sort of dot, you hit the dot button on a repo, and you immediately kick over into VS Code Web, and then you can use Code Spaces that underpins that with obviously, some workload capabilities, etc. So this is a beginner's guide into how to do this. So first of all, sign in obviously to GitHub, create a code space, utilizing templates if you want, and then just start coding. And then you can use extensions and all that great stuff. The thing that I think the real secret sauce, I think, for code spaces to me is the fact that you can provision these sort of like you have these provisioned dev environments that underpin code spaces, which I think is really the high order bit for me. That's what I think a lot of folks like about code spaces. But I've dabbled with this. I'll be honest. I don't know if you have, Jim, or not, but I liked it when I was using it.
I've dabbled a lot with dev containers,
Yep.
VS Code dev containers,
Yep.
which provide that same benefit. I'm hoping that these two things are compatible under the hood because I love the idea of coming to a repository and just being able to get at it. Right? That's hey,
Yeah.
I want to work with this in a richer way than I can through the code search features and stuff that we talked about last week.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Hit dot, you're in. But I also cannot be dependent on the internet for my development experience. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
need both.
When I was talking to Damian Brady about this, he made a good point, which is if you're heavily involved in open source, just being able to hit dot and start contributing right away is
Yes.
a
Yeah.
massive win. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a good
Exactly.
point.
Yeah.
Cool. This was another article that dropped also. No more waitlist. Code search and code view are now available to all in public beta. So this is a new feature that GitHub has announced. This ability to do a much better code search as part of the experience. Let me see if I can actually. They don't have it as an. Is this not an image? I thought it was an image. Anyways, so they announced this back at Universe where they had new code search and a code view integrated as part of GitHub .com, the web experience. And so now the beta is publicly available to all, and you can kind of make it out there. I apologize. I thought this was an image. And so now you can integrate this, or sorry, utilize this as part of your workflow if you're utilizing the web client, which is fantastic. I've never been a huge fan of code search in GitHub. I've always felt like it was difficult to use, and I never found what I was looking for sometimes, and I was just like frustrated by it. So I'm encouraged by this. And hopefully it will help me find all the bugs if I need to, or all the source code I need to reference going forward.
So did this say if you need to turn it on across your repository, or is it automatically doing it?
Yeah, so it's a feature. See how it says feature preview here?
Yeah.
So
Right.
this is how
Okay.
you access it. So you go into your GitHub page, you access feature preview, and you can turn on and off various
Right.
capabilities. And so this is a new code search and code view beta. This was under a closed beta before, and now it's public and available to all. So they announced this today.
I'm not sure if you recall last week we were talking about how I couldn't use the code search and the code reference features properly in our GitHub repo for some reason. And I worked out why. It's because
Oh, okay.
it's disabled for anything over like 100,000 files or something like that.
Okay.
So
That will do it. Yeah. I know that there are even Chrome extensions that
yeah,
that provide ancillary capabilities to GitHub as well. So there's also the GitHub Next project as well. So if you go to GitHub Next, You'll see some of the projects that they have listed there. I talked
Yeah.
to Damian about this and such, and this is kind of where Copilot came out of. So definitely stuff worth checking out. The one that we liked, the one that we chatted about was Test Pilot. This idea that I can basically utilize Copilot's AI to basically suggest tests. And I made the joke like, hey, this will get me to 100%, right? Code coverage. And yeah, you got to make sure you obviously check what it's generating and all that. So anyways, definitely stuff worth checking out. So Code Search, Code View, now available to all through its public beta, which is fantastic. And then another update, it's just a little bit of GitHub today. It just so happens they've made some minor updates to their issues and projects. So now you can automatically add items from multiple repositories. So basically, this is an automation that basically allows you to add multiple items to a project. And so this is really important if you've got a project description that is for multiple repos. And so now you can simply set this up, and then when ready, you can simply select duplicate workflow and create a new auto add workflow, which is great. So reordering of roadmap items. These are, as I said before, a little bit minor. Add cross-organizational issues and pull requests to projects, which is great. So they're thinking more a little bit about at a higher level, like not so much on it's no longer a project and repo one-to-one basis. They're thinking a little bit more at a higher level, which is great to see. And then if you're utilizing the API, they've got some improvements. GraphQL, of course, is one of the APIs that allow that you can call against the GitHub API. So, have you played around with GraphQL at all?
I haven't. I haven't.
It's fun. Basically, the idea there is you can structure you basically set it up so that it gives the ability for consumers of your API to basically describe the structure on which you want the result sets to be returned as, and you can construct the format of the result set. And this is really useful in cases where the data is a bit disjointed, meaning you want to combine, say, in this example here, maybe I want to combine projects with issues from a variety of repos and utilizing queries. It kind of makes sense when you think about GraphQL. It's a query language, if you think about it, and it allows you to construct these graphs, this ability to construct these result sets back on an API request. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
The thing that's always come to mind with there is the versioning hell it might create for yourself. But
oh sure, yep. Like not my pig, not my farm, but it's great for the users for sure.
100%.
So switching gears a little bit to Terraform. So Terraform is something that I've definitely been working on for a while now, and the thing about Terraform is that when you go to the registry and you take a look at what providers are there, there's a lot of providers available. So these are providers that are available up on the registry. You can grab any one of these and start, utilizing it to perform all the operations via Terraform. But sometimes you'll hit one that isn't supported. And so what do? And so this is TerraCurl. And the idea here is that with this provider, you can basically curl request endpoints. So you don't have to have full support for a particular endpoint or solution to still use a provider. This is sort of like a generic provider. And HashiCorp wrote a blog post about this. So it's basically writing Terraform for unsupported resources. So an unsupported resource might be something like, let's say I want to hit an API that's available from my local grocery store. I don't know. And that local grocery store is like, what's Terraform? I don't know what you're talking about. Well, you could use this provider, TerraCurl, to now to basically invoke API calls or requests. And so you can see here, this is the request body here. So it's your JSON payload. And then it has basically resource attributes for the headers, the response codes, anything that you want to specify on the wire, like, certs, etc. And then it allows you to wire up other things as well, like where's my destroy method? If I want to delete items, where's, other things that I want to call. And so I thought this was kind of clever. It's just basically like a generic solution for things that are unsupported. And that was something that I saw earlier and I thought was kind of cool. So that's TerraCurl.
Sounds like a great escape hatch. And of course, your local supermarket's going to be writing idempotent APIs, I'm sure.
That's right. That's right. I didn't want 10,000 oranges. This dropped earlier. I don't know if you got a chance to check this. This is from Vercel. This is called tryTM or trademark. But basically, like if you look at when people look at async await with obviously utilizing async await in a JavaScript context, it's like beautiful until you remember that you've got to handle errors and exceptions. And so basically they call this the try catch tower of terror. So the idea is you go from, hey, I'm using async await, everything's awesome, to I better structure this a certain way, to, oh, that's right, I got to handle all the exceptions and errors that may occur. And then this is a library. This is called try, that basically allows you to go back. That's why you see this sort of tryTM, allows you to basically go back to the sort of beautiful world of one-liners. So what you're sorry, you're laughing. What are your thoughts on this? Horror, amazement. I mean, it is a bit of syntactic
At this
sugar, but
point, amusement. I mean, it
okay.
looks like a great solution to a problem we have. Not sure if you were aware of a lot of the controversy that happened around the time that promises were invented in the JavaScript community. Well, the functional programmers came in and said, "Hey, you guys, you could make promises a monad and never run into these problems." But it looks like they're finding their own path through it. So
Yeah, and that if
yeah.
that path may be blazoned by a bulldozer of a library, but there you go.
One of the great things, if this was you could probably get away with handling having a single error handler or chaining error handlers or something like that as well, if there was a more functional approach available for this sort of stuff. But
Yeah, I was kind
yeah,
of thinking the
looks
same way. I mean, there's a lot of
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's like not everything's a nail, and you can approach it different ways. So,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
they also talk about the fact that you get into callback hell as well, so that's why you have to
yeah,
kind of nest these things as well. So,
yeah.
anyways, I won't pretend to know that if this is good or not. I just thought I'd share it and thought it would be
Looks
fun to
like a
talk
great
about.
thing to
So,
have from where we are right now.
oh sure, yeah, yeah. I'll sit in my ivory tower and judge. So that's all good. This is from Matt Pocock. This is TS Reset. So for those who are web developers, you may be familiar with CSS Reset. This idea that different browsers do things differently and have different defaults when rendering pages around CSS. TS Reset is a similar idea, except what it does is it basically resets TypeScript into sort of a mode where things aren't handled as gnarly. So without TS Reset, here's the pitch. Without TS Reset, you get things like .json in a fetch or json.parse both return any. With TS reset, they both return unknown. If you're going to go filter on a Boolean expression, it doesn't behave how you expect. Now with TS reset, it behaves exactly how you expect. Same thing with array.includes, often breaks on read-only arrays. With TS reset, it's widened to be more ergonomic. So the idea here is you basically load TS reset as an import, and then from there, basically things kick in action. So it's very similar to CSS reset in that regard. So very lightweight browser, or sorry, very lightweight library, and basically you get a lot of the functionality that I guess you would expect. I don't know. I'm asking the question: does this meet your expectations around TypeScript use?
This is fantastic. I love almost everything Matt does.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is great.
cool.
He had a fantastic Twitter thread the other day as well about the different levels of type maturity that you might want to adopt in TypeScript, which was a really great primer for those new and progressing through TypeScript as well to sort of understand where it could be. And this is a great example of how good it can be.
Hmm. Yeah, very good. Yeah. I just use it, and like these edge cases I don't worry about. I'm like, meh, I guess that's the way it is. So I mean, but I jump from language to language. Like I jump around. Like I'm doing Go one day and I'll do
Yeah,
TypeScript another, and then I'll do C sharp, and then I'm kind of like one of one of those circus acts where you're spinning all kinds of different plates. And so,
totally.
if your world is nothing but TypeScript, I can understand why your reaction would be like, yes. But to me, I was like, meh, I guess. So
And that's why I was mentioning that post the other day. There is there are levels of investment you can make in the understanding of these that bring higher and higher returns. once you get to those high levels, it'll be a whole new world. But you know, there are great value at the lower levels as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So to explain what this is called Rust Sitter. To explain what this is, you need to understand something called tree sitter. So let me set the context. When we built the VS Code extension for Octopus Deploy, for those who don't know, there's a Visual Studio Code extension. Let me see if I can do the Googles here for Octopus Deploy. Let's see, that's it right here. So when we built this thing, what this is basically it's an extension for VS Code, and it gives you syntax highlighting of OCL files and allows you to incorporate snippets and all that sort of stuff. So when you work with building a language support, you have to construct what's called a grammar. And when we built the VS Code extension for Octopus, we were looking at this, and we thought this would be a good solution for creating a grammar. So what TreeSitter is, it's a C-based library for building grammars for basically doing what's called incremental parsing. It's a very efficient way of basically constructing what's called an AST, or abstract syntax tree. And we were looking at using this. We never went about building it, but we thought this looks pretty cool, and it actually is a great way to construct those ASTs. The reason why you want to build an AST is if you want to support things like IntelliSense or completion, like code completion. So the idea is with OCL in Octopus, you would say, I'm creating a deployment process, and then the next thing is, a step, and then the next thing is, an action. And what type of actions do you have? You have script actions and whatnot. So we would create an AST for that. This is called Rust Sitter, and it's basically the same thing, but in Rust. And so I thought this was kind of interesting because, as you know, Rust has some nice capabilities to it. And you can define a grammar quite well, actually, by utilizing a series of modules. And then from there, you can define various AST nodes simply by denoting through the attributes that you see here. So I'm not going to pretend to know all the ins and outs of this, but I thought this was kind of clever. And so I thought I would just highlight this for anyone who's interested in building an AST in Rust, or rather with Rust, a Rust Sitter, and you're looking to build an AST that way. So there you go. Yeah. All right, moving along. Starter.place. So, Jim, I know that you're always, looking to create a new project, and if you're in that camp like Jim is, always creating new repos on GitHub, this is one place you can go. This is starter.place, and what this is basically a place for all kinds of templates for projects. If you're wanting to construct, say, new ASP.NET boilerplate application, or new React app, things like that. It's kind of like a meta site for all of these code gen. It's kind of like Yeoman, but on a web, and for a variety of different projects. And so the idea is you can walk up to any one of these, and we'll take you to the repo that contains that template. So if you're at all interested, you can check it out. It's at starter.place. I didn't realize that .place was a TLD. So it's amazing. Like, the TLDs that are available today always astound me. I'm like, really? There's a .place, and there's like a .university, and yeah.
These ways to start different projects always change over time too. That's what gets me, like when I'm, I used to know how to start a React project. Now I don't. I used to know how to start this project. Now I don't.
Yeah, this one's for the T3 stack, what's called the T3 stack. This is basically a combination of a variety of different frameworks, including Next and TRPC, and Tailwind and TypeScript, etc., etc. So, so lots of things worth checking out there, and Starter.place is a way to kind of see all that stuff hang together. This one is going to be a bit of a deep cut. If you're maybe as young as Jim is and not as old as I am, this may not be something that you may remember. But back in the day, there was an operating system known as BOS. Now, for those who might remember, BOS was an environment that was, I guess, in competition with Next for being the next version of macOS. And so BOS was Jean-Louis Gasset was part of that crew. And this was a super awesome modern operating system built in C++ that was available back in the 90s. I used this as part of my computer science dissertation. I used this operating system as part of it. I loved this operating system. It had everything that I could possibly want and more. It was fast. It was super modular. I loved it. It was great. It had really funny APIs in it. There were two APIs I remember. One was "Is computer on?", which I don't know if we ever evaluated, and then the other one, which was "Is computer on fire?" and or "Is CPU on fire?" That's right, and it would measure the temperature of the CPU, and if it was over, there was huge threads of debates on various forums of like, will this actually return true? Like, it's in a non-deterministic sense, like whatever. So, anyways, the whole point of this post was that the one thing about the BOS, which is now called Haiku, by the way. So when BOS 5 shipped, it went I believe it went open source, but then was made publicly available as Haiku. And so this was a post that talked a little bit about the package management system of BOS. The thing that you're seeing here on the left-hand side is basically the software updater. And this is well before like Windows Update was super solid and all that. And even app stores and things like that. Like this was available in BOS back in the day and was awesome. Like I loved this. This was one of the things that was just like click, 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 next, 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 finish, and everything just worked. And so BOS back in the day had a super solid extensibility mechanism, and talks a little bit about how it would lay things down on disk and how you install packages and all that sort of stuff. So I love this. I thought this was fantastic, and it kind of gave me some nice nostalgia for a Friday. So we're all about the nostalgia on Fridays, aren't we? So
100%.
yeah. Did you have any experience with BOS at all?
I didn't. It was a Unix Linux flavor, was it?
Yeah, 100%. So
Yeah.
BOS was it came out back in the day, and had the spinning teapot in OpenGL and
Yeah.
had a lot of
Yeah.
things going for it. And the demo I always remembered was they had this CPU applet that you could turn on and off CPUs. This was back. You have to remember back in the day. This was before computers were multi GPU, multi CPU machines were available. Now it's like 32 cores, whatever. Come at me, bro. But back in the day, having more than one CPU in a machine was like really unheard of. And they retailed hardware called B boxes and stuff that had multiple CPUs in it, and they had this little applet that allowed you to turn on and off CPUs. And the question became, what happens if you turn off the last CPU, and the whole thing would freeze. And so a friend of mine told me that there was a demo they saw back in somewhere around the valley where they were doing a presentation of BOS, and they basically said, well, they got 4 CPUs in this box, and they were rendering all kinds of QuickTime movies and OpenGL 3D scenes and all that. And he's like, let's turn off one CPU, and it got everything kind of like shook a little bit, and you saw some frames drop. And then he's like, oh, okay, you can see that's, and the thing about the CPU applet is that you'd see the load go up. So it had this little like measure of like out of 100%. And so he turned off one, and then everything kind of went up a little bit. He's like, oh, that's interesting. Turned off another, and then everything just kind of went up to like 99%. And he turned it off to one, and it just got pegged at 100%. And he's like, what happens if we turn off the last one? He turned it off, and the whole screen froze. And he's like, all right, there you go. Well, thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you at the booth and all that. So I thought it was a great way to end a demo, but they disabled that after the fact. Like you couldn't turn off the last CPU. But
well, I was just about to say, I think we just finally found a use for that that UI joke where you go to click the button and it moves.
Yeah, 100%.
Finally found a good use for that UI pattern.
That's right. And wrapping right up, I think you'll like this one, Jim. This is known as the LOL verifier. So I know you're not like this, but sometimes I'll write LOL, and there is no laughing out loud. There is no chuckling on my end. And so what this is a hardware solution via USB that will only allow you to type LOL when you've truly laughed out loud. So this is basically the verifier device sits between your keyboard and your computer and only allows you to type LOL when you've truly laughed out loud. So it's verified. I thought this was awesome.
This is awesome. This is awesome.
So
because the flip side of it is sometimes I do laugh out loud and type lol, and then I'm like, no, and then you have to sort of qualify it. No, I really did laugh out loud this time.
Yeah, I think every keyboard should have this installed, And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there you go. So you can see how he's plugging it in. It's a device that sits there, and then he's 10 hours of funny fart sounds. So there you go. And he just sits there and he's like, "That's funny." And he's like, "Can you type LOL?" I guess not. So I guess there's the extension. Yep. So there you go. Anyway,
Uh,
oh, good stuff.
nice.
All right, Jim. Well, that wraps up another episode of Deploy on Friday. Jim, thanks for joining. And
Pleasure.
if you like what you saw in this episode, please give us a like and please subscribe to our channel. It really helps out. And let us know if you see something that tickles your fancy on the interwebs there. Let us know, send us a comment, and let us know what you'd like us to highlight. Obviously, Jim and I are more on the developer oriented side. So anything software related is awesome. So thanks again, Jim. I really appreciate your time.
Yep. Love it. See you later.
All right. See you guys.